Good morning, Open Door. We're so glad to see you here. Let's stand to our feet and worship. Come on, let's put our hands together.
To welcome you, God, and fill this place again with your song, and flood our thoughts with wonder and awe, and give us a greater glimpse of a never-changing God. Come on, let's sing all we want. 'Cause all we want and all we need is found in you, is found in you. And Jesus, every victory is found in you, is found in you. Yeah. And open wide our hearts now to you. Every fear, 'cause every fear bows down to your love, that we will see like never before, and give us a greater glimpse of a never-changing God. 'Cause all we want, yes, 'cause all we want and all we it's found in you, it's found in you. And Jesus, every victory is found in you, it's found in It's in your presence, and in your presence there is freedom, and in your presence we are made whole, and in your presence there is freedom, and in your presence we are made whole. 'Cause all we want and all we need is found in you, it's found in you. And Jesus, every victory is found in you, it's found in you. 'Cause all we want and all we need is found in you, it's found in you. And Jesus, every victory is found in you, it's found in you. It's found in you. Yes, we are Jesus. Need no other hiding place. Our hope is safe within your name. And this we know, and this we know. You promise never to forsake us. What you began, you will sustain. And this we know, and this we know. Sing it out. And I will call upon the Lord, for He is strong enough to save. Sing it out. And rise, your shackles are no more, for Jesus Christ has broken every chain. And I will call upon the Lord, for He alone is strong enough to save. And rise, your shackles are no more, for Jesus Christ has broken every chain. Yes, you have, Jesus. Hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest flame, but wholly trust in Jesus' name. Oh, yes, sing it again. Hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest flame, but wholly trust in Jesus' name. Christ and cornerstone, and weak made strong in the Savior's love, and through the storm, and He is Lord and Lord of all. Yes, You are. When darkness seems to hide His face, oh, I rest on His unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, and my anchor holds within the veil. And my anchor holds within the veil. And Christ alone, and cornerstone, and weak made strong in the Savior's love, and through the storm, and He is Lord and Lord of all. And Christ alone, and cornerstone, and weak made strong in the Savior's love, and through the storm, and He is Lord and Lord of all. You're Lord of all, Jesus. He shall come with trumpet sound, Sing it out. And Christ alone, and cornerstone, and weak made strong in the Savior's love, and through the storm, and He is Lord and Lord of all. Yes, and Christ alone, and cornerstone, and weak made strong in the Savior's love, and through the storm, and He is Lord and Lord of all. Yes, and Christ alone, and cornerstone, and weak made strong in the Savior's love, and through the storm, and He is Lord and Lord of all. You are for Jesus, yes you are, and only you, Jesus. We thank you, Father. You're so good to us, Jesus. We thank you. Amen. You guys may be seated.
Now, home is a lot of work. Just plain work. When work at home is planned and organized for cooperation, there can usually be more time for leisure.
I'm certainly in favor of those things. Leisure, fun.
Who isn't?
Wouldn't we all be happier if we worked out a little system for living together in harmony?
But how can we manage them?
We'll have to work out the full answer together.
Say, Mom, you're swell.
Most family problems can be solved through frank and friendly discussion, which points the way to a happy family life.
You know, this is beginning to be quite a family project.
It certainly is.
Good morning. It's good to see you today. Welcome to Open Door. If this is your first time here, we want to say a special welcome. Thank you for coming to join us on Sunday, even during strange and unusual times. It is a pleasure to be able to spend a little bit of time with you on Sundays, and we're glad that you are here. And hope that you will come back. Hope something will take place today in the service that'll speak to your heart, encourage you, lift you up, maybe help you in your relationship with Christ. And today we're talking on relationships and families. Hopefully it'll help you in your family. Thursday night was a good success, and today is an improvement because Thursday night I got up here and had forgotten my microphone. My routine was so out of whack that I forgot to put my microphone on, so I was playing, and I walked over here to preach, and I was like, I don't have a microphone on. So today's an improvement, but Thursday night was a success. And if you know someone who might want to participate in our Thursday night service, send them our way. It is a mask required service on Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. Sundays, we haven't been the police, and there are lots of people who have exceptions and exemptions and feelings and opinions, and so we haven't done that, but we have lots of people who are a little anxious about coming back to church, and so we created a special service on Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. It's mass required, and most of the people in the room Thursday night had not been to church since March. Had not been in the church since March. And so we considered that a success. And so if you know someone who wants to come and join us on Thursday night, we would be glad to have them. It'll be the same sermon as the previous Sunday. So the next Sunday. So Thursday night I preached what I'm preaching today. And we're going to continue down that path. Two things I want to tell you before we get into the sermon. One, next Sunday we're collecting food for the food pantry. It is spaghetti and tomato sauce. If you can help us out by bringing some of that, it'll be taken over to the food pantry to be distributed to people who are in need. If you can grab it when you go to the grocery store or Dollar General, wherever you happen to go, it would be appreciated. You can participate. Second thing, if you could say a prayer for our new preschool and daycare. Tomorrow is opening day. It's been a long journey to get there. And we are finally there. They're ready to open. And we ask you to pray for them because it is a ministry of the church and they have a heart to serve children. And we want to pray that God would bless and keep them, help them, the children, the staff. If you know somebody looking a job, they still have some openings. And you certainly could send them that way and they could get a job and it would be much appreciated. Now, we're in a series we started last Sunday called Your Imperfect Family, and we're talking about subjects that every family needs. Here's why. Because your family is imperfect. There's 100% chance your family is not perfect. The thing is, all of us are part of a family. So there are things I can talk about that might not be family related or they might not apply to you sometimes. But the truth is, all of us are part of a family some way. We're son, daughter, mother, father, sister, brother, and we husband, wife. And we'll talk about those issues over the next few weeks. But we're talking about issues that can help us in our family unit. And we believe that if we can kind of make application of some of these passages of Scripture, it will improve our families. Last week we talked about raising the bar for spirituality in your family and some things that you have to do if you want your family to be more spiritual. It won't happen by accident. You got to be intentional. Over the next 2 weeks after today, 2 weeks after the following 2 weeks, we're going to talk about conflict, and there's a chance. 100% chance you have conflict in your family from time to time. The only thing it takes for conflict is one person. I used to say two people, but I'm down to one now because I know a lot of people who are conflicted with themselves. But you put two people together and there's 100% chance at some point you're going to have conflict. So we'll talk about conflict, what the Bible has to say about that over the next couple of weeks. We're going to talk one Sunday about intimacy and sex. We'll talk about finances. We'll talk about parenting one week. So I think there's a lot of things that we can learn. Today we're going to talk about communication. And I don't really care. All right, so no matter which one of these topics I take a stab at, some of them you're going to be better at than others. Some of them you're going to be worse at than others. Some of them you're going to think you're good, and others you're going to struggle at. And even in a topic like communication, some of pieces of communication you're going to be better at than others, okay? And so we're going to deal with those today. But today we're going to talk about communication. And communication is a struggle, no matter how good you are at it, because you and I, your husband, your wife, you and your children, you and your parents all have different experiences. You have different lenses. You have different educational levels. You have different things that you're looking through. And when you say something or look at something, you are communicating through that lens. And you're hearing through that lens, and it's affecting the conversation that's happening. And the same is true with them. And sometimes even we say words, and it means one thing for us, but it means something completely different for them. Okay? Now, you've heard me talk about some of these words, like the easiest word to pick on is fine. If I say I'm fine, I'm fine. All right? If my wife says she's fine, she's probably not fine. Sometimes she's fine, but sometimes she's not fine, okay? Sometimes fine means I'm really not fine, and if you say one more thing, I'm going to explode on you, and you're going to find out what fine is, okay? And so it means different, but all of us have things that we mean differently, okay? It could be like, something I say from time to time, people ask me, and I say, I don't really care. All right, so and people on staff, they figure this out pretty quickly. If I say I don't really care, for the most part, I don't really care. You have all the world to do whatever you want. I may come back and say something, but for the most part, I don't really care. But for some people, when they say, I don't really care, what they really mean is, I want you to do it the way I want you to do it, but I'm not going to tell you. I want you to figure it out on your own, right? That's what they mean. I don't care where we eat. Right? So I don't care. If I say I don't care where we eat, I don't care where we eat is I don't care where we eat. But if you say I don't care where we eat for some people, and then you say, okay, let's go to X, they say, no, I don't want to go there. I thought you said I don't care. Well, I don't want to care except I don't want to go there. Right? Well, then I don't care where we eat is different. There are so many ways. And listen, here's what I want to say about that. It doesn't mean one person's wrong and the other person's right. It just means that we approach things completely different. Our approach to communication and the words that we speak and the things that we say don't always mean the same or, whatever. I'll give you a simple word. No. No don't always mean no. All right? I'm going to embarrass some of you. Sometimes when she says no, she don't mean no. She means she wants you to try something than the same thing you've tried the last 45 times. Sometimes no means I really want you to take me to dinner and have a conversation with me and let's go to the movies before yes. See, y'all are all uncomfortable. This is life. I'm coming to your house. I mean, it's just the way life is, right? And we can pretend like that ain't the way it is. So when no, you say no, you think no means no. No don't necessarily mean no. No may mean I want you to think about this differently. I want you to approach this differently than the way you had before. Well, I had lots of personal illustrations I can give, and I get tired of talking about our situations all the time. And I think a couple of the best ones I know I've already shared. So I found a different story I'm going to tell. Illustrates how we can think we know what we mean, but they have no clue what we mean. A rather old-fashioned lady was planning a couple of weeks vacation in Florida. She also was quite delicate and elegant with her language. She wrote a letter to a particular campground and asked for reservations. Excuse me. Water went down the wrong way. It says she wrote a letter to a particular campground and asked for reservations. She wanted to make sure the campground was fully equipped, but didn't know how to ask about the toilet facilities. She just couldn't bring herself to write the word toilet in her letter. After much deliberation, she finally came up with an old-fashioned term, bathroom commode. But when she wrote that down, she still thought she was being too forward, so she started all over again and rewrote the entire letter and referred to the bathroom commode simply as the BC. And she asked this, does the campground have its own BC, is what she actually wrote. Well, the campground owner wasn't old-fashioned at all, and when he got the letter, he couldn't figure out what the lady was talking about. That BC had him stumped. And after worrying about it several days, he showed the letter to other campers, but they couldn't figure out what the lady meant either. The campground owner finally came to the conclusion that the lady was and must be asking about the location of the local Baptist church. So he sat down and wrote the following reply. Dear Madam, I regret very much to delay in answering your letter, but I now take pleasure in informing you in that the BC is located 9 miles north of the campsite and is capable of seating 250 people at one time. I admit it is quite a distance away if you're in the habit of going regularly, but no doubt you will be pleased to know that a great number of people take their lunches along and make a day of it. They usually arrive early and stay late. The last time my wife and I went was 6 years ago. It was so crowded that we had to stand up the whole time we were there. It may interest you to know that right now there's a supper plan to raise money to buy more seats. They plan to hold the supper in the middle of the BC so everyone can watch and talk about this great event. I would like to say it pains me very much not to be able to go more regularly, but it's surely not for a lack of desire on my part. As we grow older, it seems to be more and more of an effort, particularly in cold weather. If you decide to come down to the campground, perhaps I could go with you the first time you go and sit with you and introduce you to all the other folks. This really is a very friendly community. You see, she had in her mind what she thought was a polite way of saying one thing, and he had figured out she meant something completely different. And I don't know, listen, that seems to be absurd, but I have to be honest with you. I've been in conversations where they were talking about a commode and I was talking about a church. Right? Have you ever had that communication and you couldn't figure out why you couldn't get on the same page? I see it in marriages often. This person's talking about this and this person's talking about this, and they can't understand why they can't come to an agreement. It is because they're using communication that neither one understands, and they're coming at it from completely different angles, and they can't figure it out. Clear communication is critical. And here's the other thing. Just because you can talk well doesn't mean you can communicate well. I talk to people from time to time who have plenty of words. When they're done, I'm just confused, not informed. They've given me lots of information, but my life isn't any better. It hasn't improved anything. They've just shared with me a bunch of words, and it hasn't changed anything. And when it comes to marriage, sometimes we share words and we don't change anything at all. So today we're going to look at 5 verses from the book of Proverbs, chapter 25, and I'm going to talk to you about 5 things that will make the communication, not just in your home, but really anywhere you live, better. But today we're talking about families. And the first thing is this: timing is everything. There are usually 2 faults when it comes to timing. There are the people who talk too early. They pick the wrong time. Like it doesn't matter if it comes to their mind, they say it. They don't take into account the timing of the situation. Because it's on their mind, they think it's time to say it, and they say it. That's the first fault that I usually find. The second fault is the person who never finds the right time to say it. They're the person who sits at home waiting on all the lights to turn green between here and wherever they're going before they leave the house. You know, they want everything to be perfect. They want everything to be exactly right. And when everything isn't exactly right, they just don't communicate. But timing, when you say it, is critically important. Now, you think, and we're going to spend a little bit of time on what you say in a few minutes, but I would tell you that timing, when you say it, is just as important as what you say. As a matter of fact, when you say it and how you say it may be more important than what you say. If you get what you say right, but you don't get the other 2 things right, it's going to be a struggle for you to communicate. If you're a baseball fan in here, the difference between a long foul ball and a home run is timing. As a matter of fact, some foul balls go further than home runs do, but the batter swung too early or swung too early. Swang, that is not a word. So not there, it's not a word anyway. Swung too early or swung too late, and it ended up being a foul ball. So timing is everything. You can get everything else right and get the timing wrong, and it will affect everything that takes place. He says this, verse 11 is where we're going to start. He says, timely advice is lovely, like golden apples in a silver basket. Sometimes we'll read a Bible verse and we get bogged down in stuff that don't matter, okay? And sometimes we're trying to decide if he's talking about actual gold apples or gold delicious apples or golden colored skin apples, whether he's talking about a silver colored basket or real silver basket. What he's trying to say is, timely advice is lovely. It is good to look at. It is good to receive it. It is perfect in its timing. It looks well. It's valuable, okay? Whether it's gold, real gold apples or a real silver basket is valuable. Or it's nourishment. It's food to eat dressed in something that makes us want it. He says timely advice is lovely. When you get the right advice at the right time, it can be life-changing. Right communication in your family must include timing. You've got to learn your spouse. You've got to learn your children. You need to know when is the right time to talk and when's not the time to talk. And if you haven't figured that out yet, you're like, well, ain't no good time to talk. Well, listen, I will tell you this. There's not a perfect time to address some issues. but not addressing them is a bad idea. So is your spouse or your children, are they morning people or are they night people? You know, so if they've got to have a gallon of coffee intravenously before they can function, trying to talk about something serious when they first wake up is a bad idea. Okay, it's a bad idea. If at 8 o'clock their eyes start going, you know, 9 o'clock is a bad time to try to have a serious conversation with them. If they work at a stressful job, when they walk in the house from work, it's probably a bad time to talk with them. If your kid hates school, when you pick them up and put them in the car, it's probably a bad time to try to have that serious conversation. You have to pay attention. You have to know, am I better off to do this at a meal? Am I better off to do this in the car while we ride? Am I better off to do this in bed? You know, where am I supposed to do? You know, wherever the timing matters. Like I know some people, and I'll allude to this at the end. I know some people, when they have to talk about a serious subject, they go out to eat. Because the timing of it matters to them. One, that it means they're not hungry. They're solving their hunger problem. They're in a public place, so they can't say but so much at such a volume, right? Okay, so they keep the conversation centered. Usually it's just the two of them, so they're across the table for one another. And so it becomes an effective way. I know other people who find the best time to talk is when they get in the automobile because nobody can escape, you know. And so, right? So they just ride until they're finished talking. Everybody has a better time, and every topic has a better time. Here's an example. Money. Is it better to talk about money on payday, in the middle of the pay week, or at the end of the pay period when you don't have any money? It's better to talk about it when you have some money left, either at the beginning or the middle. But you know when most people talk about money? When they run out. And everybody's stressed and everybody's frustrated and we don't have enough money, and then there's conflict and you can't figure out. It's because you picked the wrong time. Timing matters. And you're like, well, sometimes timing can't be addressed. I get that. There are a few times in life like you're just hit with it, you got to deal with it, and you do the best you can. But for the most part, you have the ability to choose when you're going to talk. And so here's some things about timing that I would tell you, that if you get them wrong, if you say the wrong thing at the wrong time, it's going to be a disaster. Probably a fight. Okay? If you say the right thing at the right time, you're just going to get resistance. So you're saying something that matters, but you've chosen the wrong time. They're tired, they're frustrated, they just woke up, and they're going to push back and not going to listen to it. If you say the wrong thing at the right time, you have a mistake. You're like, well, what's the wrong thing at the right time? So everybody's in a good mood, maybe you're on vacation, and you say something, and it's the timing of it's just not right. They just ignore it. Everybody goes on. It's no big deal. It becomes a mistake. But you have success when you say the right thing at the right time. That is when you have the most success in relationships. And so when you communicate, is as important as what you communicate. It's not just, I've got this to say and they need to hear it. It's when the timing of it matters. Second thing, listen with an open mind. Communication, it should be two ways. All right? You should listen as well as speak. One of the struggles that most people have is we're quiet, and that goes for listening. Right? When they're talking, we let them talk, we keep our mouth shut. But while they're talking, we're thinking about how we're going to refute everything that they're saying. Right? And we're thinking about the flaws in what they've got to say, and the faults in what they've got to say, and all the things they did wrong, so that we can bring them up when it's our time to talk instead of really listening. Listening with an open mind requires us to lay down our weapons and our desire to speak back and hear what is being said to us. And one of the struggles is in marriage and family issues, often when they come to us to have a serious conversation, it's not always positive. You know, your spouse rarely says, hey, we need to talk. And when you talk, they say, I got a 20% raise today. The end. That's usually not what the conversation is about. Usually it's a complaint or something they didn't like, or a place of tension, or a decision that's got to be made. And so when that's the truth, when we have that pressure, it requires us to be even more intentional, because our natural response, particularly if it is something that deals with us, is to be defensive. We get defensive quick. It's a natural thing for us to be defensive when someone says something to us about us that we need to listen to. So the next verse 12 says this. It says, to the one who listens, valid criticism is like a gold earring or other gold jewelry. Valid criticism. To the one who listens, that's the qualifier. To the one who listens. If you get the right words, but you're not listening, it's not going to change anything. To the one who listens, there is value to it. He says valid criticism is like, there's the gold again, gold earring or other gold jewelry. It's valuable to you. I don't know if you've ever gotten any advice from a spouse, a husband, a wife, a teacher, a mentor, a book, or something that you've read, and you were listening, you were paying attention, and it literally changed some of the things and the places that you did and what you did. It literally can be life-changing. Listening can be life-changing. Listening to valid criticism can change your job. It can change your family. It can change your finances. It can change your health. But too often we get defensive, or we don't want to hear it. It's like going to the doctor and he says, you need to lose 20 pounds. You need to eat less. You need to exercise more. And we're like, you're fat. Who are you telling me? Right? Trying to tell me what I need to do. Okay? We resent that. You know, sometimes we might even do it in church. The preacher's preaching and I'm not perfect. I have flaws, and I say something where you're like, you don't do that. Who are you to tell me? And we don't listen, and so we miss out on what's important. Listen to me. I don't care whether your doctor's in shape, out of shape, has good health or bad health. If he's telling you your health needs to be better and you listen, it literally can be life-changing for you. It literally can make a difference in your life. The same is true of finances. The same is true in your marriage. We have to be willing to listen. But he says there's two really important things here. He says, to the one who listens, that's the first qualifier. You got to be willing to listen first. And the second thing is valid criticism. Now, I will tell you this. You should not allow everybody to speak into your life. Just period. You can hear them out. I'm just telling y'all, there are some people that when they talk to me, I hear them out, but I don't pay any attention to what they got to say because it's not valid. You don't need everybody speaking in your life, because if you allow everybody to speak into your life, you are going to be berserk, haywire, lose your mind, because you're going to be over here and over here and over here and over here. He says valid criticism is valuable to you. So how do we determine who is valuable? Well, first of all, consider the source. That's the first thing I would tell you. Consider who the source is. In family matters, your family knows you better than anybody does. You're like, well, but my mama's crazy, or my husband is this, or, you know, they just don't know. Here's what I would tell you. If they are your family and they are close enough to you, they see things that you can't see. And sometimes you just have to listen. They may not be right all the time, but you would be surprised if you would listen at the valid criticism that you receive within the side of the family. Second thing is this: is there any truth to it? Not is it true. All right. This is a thing I struggle with. Is there any truth to it? Not is it true. All right. Because is it true and is there any truth in it are different. Let me give you an example. If my wife says to me, you're on your phone all the time, that's not true. I'm not on it right now. Okay? That's not true. It's not true. Okay? But is there some truth in it? The answer is yes. All right, so that's one of my things I'm working on this year is, so I get a screen time report every week. I know how much time I spend on my phone, and I don't spend a lot of time on social media. As a matter of fact, if you compared our phones where social media is concerned, we spend about the same amount of time on social media, but I spend a lot more time on my phone than she does. And a lot of it's work, and I can make up all the excuses I want, but I'm not telling you how much time I spend on my phone every day because I'm ashamed of it. And some of y'all would be like, oh my God, how does he do that? But you probably hadn't looked at your screen time either and don't have any idea how much time you spend on your phone. And then you might be a little bit quieter because we all have that addiction. So when she says, you're on your phone all the time, that's not true. But there is truth in it. I'm on the phone too much. And so what I have to do then is say, is there any truth in it? Not, is it true? And we, listen, depending on your personality type, you may key in on the fact that it won't true and discount everything that was said, when if you would listen and see if there is any truth in it, it might be life-changing for you. So the question that you need to ask about valid criticism is not, is it true? It is there any truth in it? The third thing is there any, has it caused you pain? Has this caused you pain at any time? Have you ever been on your phone and walked into somebody because you weren't paying attention? Don't lie. Miss something, somebody spoke to you, whatever. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not talking about in your car. I'm just talking about walking around. Yesterday, we had the grandkids. I was trying to solve a problem. I had my phone in my hand. We're just walking around on the sidewalk at the beach, on the park, and I'm walking around, and suddenly she reaches over and grabs my hand and says, Stephen, this way. And what she was doing is saving me from walking into somebody because I was looking at my phone. And the question I need to ask, has this caused me pain? Well, the answer is yes. From time to time, it will cause me to miss a conversation, miss something important, cause me to miss something I should be doing. And so we have to make sure we ask the questions. Valid criticism, has it caused me pain? Here's a couple other things. Does this person have experience with this topic? Do they know what they're talking about? Is it something they figured out, dealt with, moved on? Or have they had success? It's hard to listen to people who have failed at something tell you should be doing something. It is. And so you want to see some success in an area when you listen. So those are ways you can ask. If valid criticism, everybody's criticism, because it don't take much effort to be a critic. Okay? You don't have to be smart to complain. Just want y'all to know that. It takes wise people to solve problems. Anybody can find fault. Anybody can. And so you want to listen to criticism that is valid and be able to determine which is which. But I would tell you this, it is difficult to determine the validity of a complaint or a criticism if we refuse to listen. You don't even have the ability to determine if it's good or bad. Here's the third thing. Speak truthfully. Now, it's not just the brazen truth. Sometimes people abuse verses like the truth will set you free, and they say whatever they want to say, whenever they want to say it, however they want to say it. I don't believe that. I believe the Bible tells us to speak the truth in love. I say it like this. The truth in love is like a brick wrapped in velvet. It's soft to the touch, but if it hits you, you're going to know it. And sometimes speaking the truth in love is soft to the touch. That's all you got to do with people. Other times you got to chunk it at them, and they know it. Okay, that's just the way it works. But we have to be truthful. There are very few things that will harm your relationship any more than broken trust. Look, we talked about timing, and later we're going to talk about harshness in this sermon. But you can resolve, you can mend hard feelings better than you can rebuild trust. You can fix somebody's hurt feelings quicker than you can rebuild trust. Trust takes time to build, and often it only takes minutes to hurt or to harm. Lack of trust will crush. If people don't trust you, it will crush communication. It says this in verse 13. It says, trustworthy messengers refresh like snow in summer. They revive the spirit of their employer. Maybe you'd say it like this: style is important, but substance is critical. If you are not truthful, if you cannot speak the truth, you're like, well, if I tell them it's going to cause this, you're better off to tell them than for them to find it out. And he says, trustworthy messengers refresh like snow in summer. I think it should snow in summer anyway, right? Like, how cool would it be to be 98 degrees outside, you get 6 inches of snow, the next morning you wake up, it's gone, okay? That would be ideal instead of it sticking around for 3 weeks and getting dirty. But it would be refreshing in the summertime. And that's something most of us don't know about. But he says people you can trust, people who speak to you and their words are true, they are refreshing to you. They revive your spirit. They make you feel better about things. And so for me, look, this is something for me I'm working on, because I know my personality type. I've talked about that some last year. But for my personality type, I want it to be true, not just truth, okay? So the angriest I have ever been at people, my wife included, is when they used a word that made something untrue and then they stick with it. Okay, so like, you are always on your phone. That's not true. And that drives me crazy. This is just my personality type. Might bother you, okay? You might not care. You might like, I know what they meant. I know what they meant too, but they know the English language and they can pick the right word, okay? You see my personality's coming out. And so I want it to be true. All right. I don't want it just to have some truth. I don't want to have to decide what you meant to say. I want to know, is what you said the truth? I want the truth. And when I don't get the truth, it's a bad day. And if you dig your heels in on something that ain't true, I'm going to the mat with you. And listen, this isn't a testimony and I ain't proud of it, okay? I'm just trying to tell y'all how I am. And I've had to work on this. This past year, all right, I have prayed every day, Lord, help me be aware of this and help me not to be so combative about words that people could mean something else with. And here's what I've noticed. I believe if you ask the people close to me, particularly my family, they would tell you I haven't been as combative about these words the past year. But here's what I would tell you about people in general. I trust a lot less than I did last year. Like if you have any variance, like you just go over there, you stay over there. I don't want to do anything with you. And so, because here's what I'm going to tell you. If you fix this part of your personality, you're going to see it affect some other parts of your personality. And that's just how I've seen it affect mine. And he says trustworthy messengers matter. And some of the ways that you can be trustworthy and make the situation true is to avoid words like always and never and every. So there's a 99.9% chance you just didn't speak the truth if you use those words. Okay, and so if you're talking to somebody who true is like the supreme thing, you have to know that and you have to avoid those words. And if you do, correct it. Say, hey, I didn't mean, but you're on it too much. Okay, or you do this too much, or you did this a lot of the time, or you do things you shouldn't. Listen, this isn't about disagreement. I don't mind disagreement. As a matter of fact, I'm 53 now. I spent 52 of my years looking for them. I would just disagree with you for the fun of it. I grew up in a home where disagreement was sport. We just argued for the fun of it. We didn't hunt, but we'd find a good argument and jump in the middle of it. And we would argue about anything. And I would argue with people when I agreed with them, just to see if they knew what they were talking about. It's just my nature. I can't help it. And I've spent the last year really, really, really trying to pull back from that and stop that. And so for me, disagreement isn't about trust. Here's what I would tell you. This is just me and my personality. Maybe you can relate. But I would tell you that this is true of almost all relationships. I would rather have somebody that I didn't agree with very often, but I trusted all the time, than to have somebody I agreed with most of the time, but couldn't trust. That's just me. I would rather have somebody I disagreed with most of the time, but I trusted everything they said, than to have somebody I rarely agreed with and didn't trust at all. Fourth thing, be transparent. You are not perfect, and you need to stop pretending like it. We have a tendency to hide. We hide our sin. We cover our flaws. We dress up our imperfections. We lie about our mistakes. I see it in families all the time. I see men in particular are more guilty of this than women. Their kid will get hurt, and they're like, get up, shake it off, you ain't hurt. Let me be clear about something. Some things hurt. And when you teach them to pretend that something don't hurt, they think you've never been hurt, and they grow up with all this stuff bottled up in them, and it spews out in other places, and nobody can figure out why. It's because they were hurt, but they had to pretend like they won't because somebody told them it didn't. I'm not telling, you're like, well, I ain't babying my kid. I didn't say baby them, but you got to be honest with them. When they break a leg, don't get up and shake it off. Listen, when their boyfriend or girlfriend breaks up with them, oh, it ain't nothing. You don't really know love. That's the stupidest thing you could tell your kids. It's everything they know right at that particular moment. And if you teach them to internalize their pain, they'll grow up to be pain-ridden adults who are going to spew in the relationship they finally get in. I'll give you another one, okay? This is just me talking. I hear parents say sometimes, our children have never seen us have a disagreement. Bad idea. I didn't say have a fight. Don't, let them in on your name calling, divorce lawyer, looking up phone number situations. That ain't what I'm talking about. But you know what happens? If they grow up in a home and they never see two people disagree and resolve it, they grow up believing that the only people I need to hang around are people who I agree with, and welcome to 2021. We got a whole group of people who think, if I don't agree with you, you're bad, and I can't do anything with you because we disagree. That's a bad idea. You need to be transparent and let them know. Listen, don't be foolish, don't be stupid, but they need to know that sometimes you and daddy or you and mama have a disagreement, and sit down and talk to them, explain it to them, tell them why, understand. Maybe they walk in on it. Listen, here's the other thing. If they walk in and they see it, don't leave it. Don't leave it without an explanation. Have a conversation with them. Tell them what it's about. I mean, you ain't got to spill everything out. You don't have to tell them personal details, but you can tell them enough to understand that I love them, they love me, we're working through this, we're having some challenges, but we love them in spite of the fact that we don't see at this particular moment eye to eye. And if we're not careful, we will make promises. Here's the verse. Let me read the verse first. It says, a person who promises a gift but doesn't give it is like clouds and wind that bring no rain. If you tell your kids it don't hurt and they grow up believing that nothing hurts, they're going to realize when they get older that stuff does hurt, and they're not going to know how to deal with it, and you've given them something that don't mean anything. If they grow up and believe the only people I get to hang around are people I agree with and look like me and talk like me, and everybody holds hands and sing kumbaya, they're not going to get along with most of the world. And every time somebody hurts their feelings, they're going to go to another job, another relationship, another town, another church. We make promises that we don't fulfill. We have to be transparent. Listen, you're not perfect, and sometimes you're going to fail. But you're like, what kind of promises do we make, Pastor, besides the two you gave? I'm going to be home for dinner. We'll play football when you get home from school. We'll watch a movie on Friday night. We'll go out to dinner next week. I'm going to take time off. I'm going to stop blank, and you can fill in the blank with whatever you want. I'm going to stop whatever. And when you say it and don't do it, and not only does it hurt your credibility, but you look like somebody who makes promises and never fulfills it. You're not perfect. I understand that. And here's what I would tell you. You should do your best to follow through with what you say, but when you don't, you should own up to it. When you didn't come home for dinner like you promised you would, don't say, oh, they asked me to work late when they didn't. When what really happened was you got to the parking lot and you and John got to talking about politics or sports. And you ended up coming home an hour or two later than you expected to. And you say, oh, I had to do some things at the office. No, you didn't have to do some things at the office. Y'all with me? It's promises that become hollow and we don't want to hear it anymore. They lose meaning to us, to the people that we're saying them to. They lose meaning to our family when we're constantly saying, I'm going to do this, but we don't. I'm going to do this, but we don't. I'm going to do this, but we don't. We have to be transparent about it. Listen, you are not perfect, and it's okay to sit down with your spouse. It should be okay. If you're in a loving relationship, it should be okay to sit down with your spouse or your children or your parents and say, hey, I was supposed to do this. I didn't do this. I apologize. It's nobody's fault but my own. Be transparent. It would make a difference in your marriage. Last thing. Be patient and kind. One of the things that would be helpful is for you to realize you're on the same team. Most of the time, not always, but most of the time. You want the same end result. I'll give you an example that causes conflict, but the end result, desire is the same. It's a question I ask when I do premarital counseling. How do you feel about discipline with children? Well, if you got two people, one came from a home where there was corporal punishment, and that's the way they deal with discipline. And you've got another who've never seen a spanking in their life, and it freaks them out when you say it. And they get married, and they don't have a conversation about it. What you have are two people trying to raise good kids that are going about it the opposite way, and they're fighting over it and can't figure out why. And sometimes we put too much emphasis on resolution. I was listening to a book recently by Dr. John Grotman, and he said something. I had to rewind it. I went back and reread it later because it caught me off guard. He said 70 to 80% of all marital conflicts cannot be resolved. They cannot be. It is impossible for you to resolve them. 100% impossible. And couples spend all their lives trying, we need to resolve this. And what has to happen from a biblical point of view is one of you has to submit. That's what has to happen. And one of you has to say, okay, I'm deferring to you. We're going to do it your way. This is the path that we're going to take. There has to be submission. You're like, which way does that have to be? That's another sermon. That ain't even this sermon. Here's what I would tell you is that everything can't be resolved. You may never say, I agree with you, but you can submit and say, we're going your way. And there's a difference. And we have to understand that. And it requires us to understand we're on the same team. We have the same goal. We both want good kids. I'm just going to submit to this is the way that you think is best. We're not, what's the resolution to somebody who doesn't believe in corporal punishment and somebody who does every other time? Right? Is that the resolution? No, the resolution is for somebody to submit and say, we're going your path. And submission is difficult. But what we have to understand is we're both on the same team. We're both going in the same direction. We both want to accomplish the same thing. And there are some things that are important. How you communicate matters, even if you don't agree, is important. Last verse. It says, patience can persuade a prince, and soft speech can break bones. Patience. As you get older, you have things, man, I wish I could do that over again. As a parent, there are probably 2 or 3 things I could change. But one of the things I would change is my patience with my children. I was young. I was pastoring a church. I was owning a business. I was chasing a dream. I was busy. Daddy, can we play ball maybe later? Daddy, I got something to tell you. I'm busy. I'll talk to you later. Can we go here? I can't. I'm busy. We'll have to do it another time. Short, always on the go. And I'm different now. I'm not perfect. I'm different, but I'm not perfect. I can think back to a time in my life where taking 3 kids anywhere would have drove me crazy. And yesterday we took all 3 of the grandkids bowling, hung out together. The value of patience I've learned. If you're a young parent in here, I'm talking to you. If you're an old person in here like me, tell them I'm telling the truth. The time will pass so fast, and you'll look back and say, where did it go? You impatiented it away. You'll have grandchildren, you go, oh, I wish I'd have known this. Patience is persuasive. Just slowing down a little bit, stopping to hear what they've got to say, even if it seems insignificant. Going out to throw the football, play a game on the Xbox, pick up a baby doll and brush their hair, help them make a meal, let them up on the stool to bust an egg all over your counter that you got to clean up, right? Patience. Because I'm telling you, there's going to come a day, if you're not patient and you wish this time away, that you'll look back and say, man, I wish I'd slowed down just a little bit. I wish I'd had a little bit more patience when they were all over the place or running around the house. I wish I did. It's persuasive. Patience. Second thing is it says soft speech can break bones. Kind words when you talk matter. I said a while ago that it's tougher to rebuild trust than it is to fix hard feelings. Soft words can break through hard feelings. The picture here, as a matter of fact, if you were to look at some cross-reference verses, it would take you to verses that look completely different. You would go, what has this got to do with this? The other verses would talk about oil and ointment. And it's like taking oil and putting it on leather. You can take a hard piece of cracked leather and you can take oil and rub it in, and that hardened piece of cracked, what might have appeared to be useless leather, suddenly starts coming back to life because oil is being taken to it. That's what soft speech means in a relationship. You need to learn how to be gentle, how to offer respect, how to be respectful, how to disagree and not be disagreeable, how to understand that your tone matters. I have to work on my tone. I'm 6'2", so I talk down to the majority of people that I'm speaking to physically. I have a big voice. I could holler and you could hear me in town. I don't really need a microphone, but it's necessary for recording and video. You can hear me. I can talk loud. I can talk over most of you, and I'm aggressive in my personality. And I have to be intentional, or my tone will just ruin everything. My wife don't just need the truth. She needs me to be oil in her life. There are times where she's dry and weary and broken, and my words need to be ointment that soften up her heart. In your relationship, soft words matter. I don't really care if you're speaking the truth. How you say it makes a difference. Speaking to them in ways that are soft. Be oil into their life. I need her to be oil in my life. Sometimes there are places that are cracked and dry. There are places that are broken and hurting. There are places that have become hard-hearted and calloused, and I don't want to deal with it anymore. And what I need her words to be are oil that softens the hardened bones of my heart that keep me from hearing what she has to say. I need to be oil for her. She needs to be oil for me, just as simply as volume. I read something sometime back that it's good advice. It said, if you got to talk about something difficult with your spouse, sit close enough that you touch. Either your feet, your knees, hold hands. You will find it nearly impossible to be harsh with them if you're touching them. If you're holding hands, listen, you're like, they're stupid. They need me to holler at them. Listen, I don't care what you need to do in your home to lower the rhetoric. You need to lower the rhetoric. Whatever you need to do to lower the tone in your home, you need to lower the tone. If you need to go to a restaurant to have the conversation, that's fine. If you need to go to a counselor to have a conversation, that's fine. But soft words can heal in ways that nothing else can. And it can heal in ways that other things can't. I would tell you that if we could get the tone right and the rhetoric lowered in our home, we'd find that it would lower some in our country. We got a nation full of people who think they should say whatever they want to say, and it don't matter how they say it. A nation full of people. And it didn't start in the nation, it started in our homes, because we're at home saying whatever we want, however we want, whenever we want. We need to lower the tone. Our speech needs to be all in the lives of our family. It needs to be healing to them, not crushing. Will you stand? I don't care. I don't know what y'all take away, even after I preach. So I have quotes and things that I send for social media even before I preach. I know what I'm going to say, but I have a takeaway today that I hadn't planned. It just set in on me on both services. But my takeaway today for me is I want to be the oil in every conversation I have. I want it to be healing, smooth, not divisive and corrosive. I want to be the oil in a conversation. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, you know the struggles in this room. You know the families who are struggling with timing. You know the families who are struggling with truthfulness. You know the families that are struggling with transparency. You know the families that are struggling with tone. God, I ask for your Holy Spirit to work in us, to hear what it is you want to speak to us. I ask for myself that my words, my conversation, my communication, that it is all for the people who hear it. May it be healing. May it provide. May it reduce friction. May it give an opportunity for people to be revived and refreshed, not discouraged and disheartened. God, whatever our families in this room are dealing with, whatever those that are online they're dealing with, whatever moments they're going through, whatever the season of their life looks like, God, speak to them today, work in them. Draw them closer to you. Help them to hear from you. Help them to lay aside the things that trip them up and to pick up the things, the tools, the wisdom, the guidance that will help them have stronger homes, stronger lives, stronger families, stronger children, stronger marriages. Help us not to leave discouraged today because we don't do something well, because we struggle in an area. Help us not to leave discouraged today, but help us to leave encouraged that there's hope. There are changes we can make. There are places we can go. There's a Holy Spirit that will embolden and empower us. God, help us to all be the oil in our conversations that we have in our family, on our job, and in our community. May the hurt places be healed. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for being here today. Families are my heart. I want to see our families succeed, and if something that can be said in a service would encourage that, I hope it does. Next 2 weeks, we're going to talk about conflict. And all of us have conflict and how we can deal with it better. And I hope that you'll be here for the next 2 weeks. Thank you for giving. I said this numerous times, but this week was the first week I actually saw some final numbers for last year. It came a day after I had talked to a pastor friend of mine whose church shut down in March. And hadn't started back yet, and he said financially we're just not viable anymore, and the church is going to stop existing. That's essentially what's going to happen. We interviewed a guy for a job here. He was a worship pastor at a church in South Carolina, a church of 1,500. They shut down in March, and they've disbanded because financially the church isn't viable. Your faithfulness to give has been incredible. I saw the numbers this past week. If you'd have told me that we could have shut down in March we were closed almost 3 months. We just did church online, and the church would have succeeded financially, I would have been scared to death. I'd have said no, because I've seen us miss a hurricane Sunday or a snow Sunday, and I've seen it dip, and it can affect the budget. You know, you lose 1 week's income because a lot of times it doesn't get made up. But we were out for 3 months. This year at Open Door, because of your faithfulness and your willingness to continue to give, even when we weren't in-person meeting, our giving was up 19% in 2021. That's just incredible. And yeah, that's a testament to you. That's a testament to your faithfulness and your giving. I talk to missionaries every day who are on furlough and don't know if they'll ever go back to the field because they've lost so much support. We haven't missed giving to one missionary. Tomorrow our daycare opens. We bought land in Bertie County, and they're working on plans now to build, and we'll show you that sometime. I'm excited about that. But your faithfulness allows us to continue to move forward. If you're a person that gives in person, many of you give online, especially those watching, you can continue to do that. As you leave, on the right, there's a bucket for tithes and offerings. On the left is a slot you can give. I do want to say thank you. I also want to say thank you because she was just here last Sunday and this Sunday to help us out. Will you let Olivia Havery know how much you appreciate her helping us out? Yeah, big help, blessing, and thankful for that. I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a great week, and I hope this week you practice being oil in the relationships that you have. God bless. We'll see you next Sunday.